Hey, what's up everybody? It's your uncomfortably unique host, Cassius Samuels, back again. And today, I'm about to go off on another classic time travel rant, Grumpy Geek style, as I try to break down what I call the Black Goku paradox. Because if you have been following this channel for any amount of time, you know how much joy it gives me to overanalyze a time paradox for the sole purpose of throwing copious amounts of shade on it. So let's go ahead and get down to it, shall we? But for those of you who may be listening who have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about, the Black Goku paradox is basically the end result of what happens with bad time travel storytelling, because it's built on the foundation of what we call a predestination paradox. Now, before I get into what all that shit means, because I know it just sounds like a bunch of word salad, I just want to say for the record, just because there is a paradox involved in a fictional story doesn't mean it's necessarily a bad thing. Some of the greatest time travel stories ever told in pop culture have crazy paradoxes built into them, like Back to the Future or Terminator. Paradoxes can always be excused if the story behind them are good. But if I'm being honest, I think there are way more examples of time paradoxes ruining a good story than I think there are the opposite, in my opinion. With that being said, a predestination paradox occurs when the actions of a person like Trunks traveling back in time ultimately causes the event that the person from the future is trying to prevent from occurring. The result of this paradox creates what is called a temporal causality loop, in which event 1 in the future, i.e. Black Goku appearing and destroying the world, influences Trunks to travel back in time to find a way to beat Black, which then causes event 1 in the future to occur because of the fact Trunks led Black Goku back into the past, which led Goku and friends going in search of Zamasu, who had his intense hatred of mortals enhanced after being defeated by Super Saiyan Goku in Universe 10. If you can follow all that. In other words, it's a mind fuck of a paradox because it means that basically Trunks' journey into the past is what causes him to have trouble in the future. It's a circular loop of events that basically ensures that history will never truly be altered by time travel. In other words, any attempts to stop something from happening in the past will simply lead to the cause happening itself instead of stopping it, which means it's pointless to do it. And since it's a perpetual loop, it's basically impossible to say which event came first in the sequence. For example, take this scenario. Imagine that your girlfriend or boyfriend dies in a hit-and-run car accident. You travel back in time to save them from their fate, only to find out on your way to the accident, you are the one who accidentally runs them over. Not the best example, but it's a simple one that helps me illustrate my point nonetheless. Like I said earlier, paradoxes don't automatically make a story lose its value, but the storytelling behind the paradox has to be above average and close to superb for the paradox to be enjoyable. And I'm sorry to say, as much as I like this new arc for Dragon Ball Super, there are enough holes in this plot to make a pincushion, because not only does the paradox involve alternate timelines that exist separately of each other, it also involves alternate universes from alternate timelines, which makes it damn near impossible to coherently understand everything that's going on. And no matter how much I like the story they're trying to tell, the fact that it seems to have no real consistency overall bothers me, and it ultimately takes away from my enjoyment of the show. I shouldn't have to be a astrophysicist or some kind of rocket scientist to understand how this story meshes and flows together. You know what I'm saying? Like, it should not be that complicated. That doesn't, complex stories that are too hard for the average audience member to understand doesn't make it a good story. You know, it doesn't make it necessarily a bad story either, but it's just saying if you're going to make a story that you want to do be successful, it has to be coherent, has to make sense, has to be consistent. And so far, we're not getting that from Toriyama with this timeline shit. And not only that, let's not forget that this is not the first but second time that Future Trunks has caused a paradox in the Dragon Ball universe by coming into the past to prevent something from happening in the future. Like, I'm pretty sure the whole reason the Dragon Ball universe timeline is fucked up to begin with is because Future Trunks won't stop fucking with the timeline. I understand that this time the paradox is a little different because this time Trunks came back into the past to get reinforcements to bring back into the future. So the paradox actually exists in his timeline, not ours. But it doesn't matter. It's still confusing as hell, and it still makes bad storytelling. And I gotta be honest, at this point I feel like even Barry Allen or Bryan Singer would be profoundly impressed by the level of time travel convolution that Future Trunks has accomplished single-handedly in his own timeline. Because when you break it down and look at it for what it really is, in the end, this whole arc is based on the fact that Black Goku destroying Future Trunks' timeline is basically all his fault for going back in time in the first place. And I'm not stupid, okay? I know Toriyama attempts to justify all this crazy, nonsensical, inconsistent shit by using string theory and multiverse theory and probably half a dozen other theories, which is cool, but except his versions of these theories don't make a lot of fucking sense when applied to his stories. But hey, maybe if we're lucky, this will be the Dragon Ball equivalent of Flashpoint, and this will reboot the universe. But we know that's not gonna happen, considering that we know the multiverse tournament is going to be starting up after this arc. So yeah, wouldn't get my hopes up. But I already know this video is going to get me attacked relentlessly as 500 different people start trying to come at me explaining quantum physics and multiverse theory and all this other shit and why it's supposed to make sense when you apply astrophysics and thermodynamics and all this other crazy shit like they're some kind of experts. But I'm just going to tell you right now, don't even waste your time, because I know what you're trying to say, it still don't make sense, and we're just gonna have to agree to disagree on this. Just have to accept that we are living in the same building, but we have different views. So with that being said, I'm gonna just go ahead and drop the mic and get out of here on that. Remember, this is all just my opinion, and you're more than welcome to disagree. Call me a stupid piece of shit who doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about, whatever. I'm cool with all that, you know what I'm saying? Just drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel, help a brother out, you know what I mean? Don't mind being called stupid names at all. Been happening to me my whole life, nothing new. But while you're at it, don't forget to check me out at some of these social media spots. The links for all those will be down in the description, and I will holler at you fucktards later. Peace.